I'm talking next with an Afghan refugee from 2008. Those were better times for Afghanistan. Since she got here in 2008, she built a wonderful life for herself. She went to grad school, she has a wonderful family, and she's a successful entrepreneur. Now she wants to give back to the people of Afghanistan and to this community we live in. 10,000 refugees for now are relocated in New Jersey, and she's putting her resources into helping them integrate in the larger community. Hear her story next. Today we are talking with Khasa. Khasa is a mom entrepreneur who co-founded BFF Weight Loss. It's a company that's helping women get into shape. But that's not what we are going to talk with her today. We're going to talk about Afghanistan. Khosar is an Afghani, and from what I understand, she still has family in Afghanistan. Khosar, welcome to Talks with Daniela.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Could you please start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So, like you mentioned, my name is Kausar. I've been a Jersey City resident for over 8 years. Just very recently, we moved away just a little bit. But I have two kids. And yes, I'm originally from Afghanistan. A lot of people didn't know until this whole thing blew up. But yeah, I'm originally from Afghanistan and I was actually born there. And I was about 4 years old in 1990 when we fled due to kind of the same reasons that people are fleeing right now. So that's kind of what happened to my family back in the days 20 years ago. So we fled Afghanistan because of war. We went to Pakistan, we spent a few years there, and then I moved to the United States in 2008. And I do have family still, not immediate family, but I do have some cousins and friends, girls who I went to college with. So we are still in touch with them.
So, what did they tell you about the life during the US presence there?
Right. So back in um, 2001, when US entered Afghanistan. A couple of years after that, we decided to move back to Afghanistan as well. So I went back from Pakistan and actually went to college there. So I do have a little bit of experience of living in Afghanistan when the US were took over. So comparing it to Pakistan, it wasn't as great. Of course, everything was like just building from ground up when we just moved back. But it was good in a sense that women were able to go back to school. I remember having girls who were over 20 years old in like 11th grade or 12th grade because they were home for this much for this long. So they had to like start. I was young. I was very young, so it was hard for me to understand and connect with them. And they were a lot older than me. And now I think about it, I'm like, this must be such a sad experience for a woman to be like, okay, now I can go to finish my high school wherever I had left off when the Taliban came in the first place. So life was okay. My mom actually had a really good position. She was working with the government. She was a medical doctor, but she had a really good job. She was working. It was safe to be able to drive, to be able to go shopping, to be able to just wear a scarf and not worry about, I mean, now they're telling women to wear like gloves to cover their hands, which is definitely not part of our religion for sure. So we were able to follow our religion, but in a very peaceful way. Terror activities were still happening in the borders of Kabul and other provinces, but in the city, it was safe. I feel like those 4 years that I spent there, we're safe. I felt fine. The women felt fine. And so during the time, back to your question, back the time when Americans were there, women felt fine. They were okay, although they weren't the most perfect situation because Taliban had just left and people were still a little like that mindset of, oh, I'm scared to let my daughter get out of the house. But I think me spending those 4 years a little scary because women were just coming out, but they were safe. They were fine.
So you said, I mean, I can understand why, things were not perfect, but women had, again, opportunities under the US occupation. But and people want to make things work in their own country. Not everybody wants perfect conditions. They want to stay there. They have their families there. They want to rebuild. So I'm coming from Romania. We, when the communism collapsed, of course, there was the Western Europe where things were settled, but not everybody wanted to go where things were settled. They wanted to stay there and rebuild and have and preserve their identity. So I can totally get that, even if it wasn't perfect, things were working. What made you and your family eventually leave, even under the U.S. Occupation?
In 2008, I I really had a hard time adjusting. So after spending a few years under, it I wouldn't say it was perfect, like I said before, but it was, the country was still establishing after 10 years of war. So like everything was in the very early stages, the schools, universities, if you want to get higher education, if you get your master's and things like that, they were still in really early stages of developing. And so after I finished 4 years of college, I really felt like I could do
Yes,
better with my career.
yes.
And like I said, some terror activities, some things were still happening in the city. Sometimes it would happen in the city, sometimes in the outskirts. But my family really didn't feel safe having me there. And I was only 18, 19 years old. So we kind of decided that it was time that I leave the country. And I was the first one who left. And then my brother and my parents came a little later. So to pursue my dreams and my career and do whatever I want to do, like, you know,
So, so you came
um,
here as a refugee. Was it a difficult process to get here, or
it wasn't difficult at all at that point. I was selected as actually took an exam in the US Embassy and I got a scholarship. So if you studied well, if you worked on yourself good amount, you were able to get out. So I was one of those lucky ones. I got a scholarship. I moved here and, you know, started my life, got married and, got my master's in Queens College in New York. And I've been here for 13 years now.
yes? Well, a similar thing happened to us too. We were, as I said, some people wanted to stay there and rebuild. We got to the point. Okay, we've seen enough of this. It's wonderful, but it's not for us. So we decided also to leave. We went first to Canada, and then we came here to the U.S. So I totally can relate to that part also. Um, so have you visited during this time when you were in the US? Were you going back in Afghanistan, visited? And have you seen things change over the years? And in what way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So after I moved here in 2008, like I said, everything was still in very, very early stages. They're building malls, they're building homes, they're building buildings, more schools, more institutions were coming just slowly. I mean, imagine building a country from ground up. But when I went back in 2014, actually went back because my dad was the last one who was there, and I really wanted to like bring him with me, and he was alone. And so I went for a week. I was shocked with the amount of work that was done from 2008 to 2014. I feel like the country was building. It was so heartwarming, so beautiful to see, before the place that looked like total disaster. Now there's parks, there's malls, there's like, there's new schools. Like they were even working on the projects, and like, on the countryside to build like more it was very different, and it was very good to see that my country is getting somewhere. And I really had a deep desire to bring my daughter one day, because in 2014, when went back and I saw all the establishments and that people are living the life that they deserve. I mean, come on, this nation have been in war for years. And so for once, I was like, there's peace, there's things that people deserve in order to live a life that they deserve. Yes, everybody, a lot of people kind of left selfishly, but we still cared about the country. We still, and I really wanted to bring my family, my husband, my kids, but that didn't happen. But you could see things were getting better. It was going to the right direction.
Was the Taliban taking over? Was it a surprise for the people in Afghanistan as it was for the US, or they saw the signs that this was going to happen?
Mm, we knew kind of that it was coming because the talks were happening. But sadly, whatever talks that were happening behind the scenes weren't shared with the public, maybe just hints here and there. It was a total like surprise that the country would go down in the matter of days, and that the Taliban would come and take on as quickly as they did. That was that came with a huge surprise and a shock to the people, to everybody in the government falling within hours. That was another shock to all of us.
What about your family? Were you able to warn them to maybe get out, or were you in talks with them? Did
Hmm.
they, what was their reaction?
Yeah, everybody was shocked because there was war for a few days in the outskirts, in the other provinces. There was a lot of war happening. So a lot of people lost their lives because the government was fighting Taliban. They were trying to just, you know. So I warned a couple of my family members who lived in some of the provinces to just leave. And so they left for Pakistan. They were one of the lucky ones who actually made it to Pakistan, because Pakistan right now is actually not accepting any Afghanis.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's very sad. So they left, so they got lucky. But I do have other family members who live in Kabul, and we're trying to help them get
Get
into
out.
some form of resettlement. Yeah, exactly. So help them kind of get their paperwork together, just to have them leave if they can.
That must be very difficult, isn't it?
It's very difficult. I have piles of papers on my desk that I need to get to and fill them out. And there's some lawyers, I cannot thank them enough. They're helping out. They're helping out a lot. And so some of my family members have a background of working with Americans, or they've worked with police. So Taliban, if they ever find them,
They are vulnerable.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What do you know about? I heard at a certain point that there were like 1,000 people, Afghanis and Americans, on like 6 planes in an airport, not Karzai airport, but another one in Kabul, waiting for to leave. Do you know they made it in the U.S. or in Qatar, or have they made it out of Afghanistan? Because I haven't
Yeah.
followed that news.
Yeah, so there were a few planes that left from Kabul because their deadline was August 31st. So until then, they were trying to send as many planes as they could, but there was a big mess at the airport. They weren't allowing people to board. That Taliban kind of like, they got the rage of like, why are these people leaving? And so they decided that they don't want to let anybody go into the airport. Although people who were at the airport, they had valid documents, they had the SIV visas. They have people, my cousin right now, he's Canadian. He's sitting in Kabul right now. He has no way to get out. He has Canadian passport. So people like that. And so the whole fight, the US airstrikes that happened on the airport was just, it was so crazy to see that happening in that kind of crowd of people who are just there to save their lives, to flee. And I even saw a few planes leaving without boarding anybody because Taliban weren't letting people board. So those people, I think some of those people who were waiting at the airport, they were able to get out. And so about 10,000 of them are in New Jersey right now, 10,000 refugees. And there's over 10,000 in Virginia, and I'm not sure how many are in Texas. So they are designating some major bases to the refugee families right now.
So you don't know about that news that at another airport in Kabul, there were like 6 planes boarded, like they were waiting for days for the okay from the Taliban to leave. You don't know if they got
That
finally the okay or no?
so that was one of the provinces in Afghanistan. It's called Mazar Sharif. I think that's where they left from, and I think they either went to some of the UAE countries or they made it to America. I have no idea. I mean,
But
New
they left.
Jersey, they left.
They left.
Yes, they did leave. Yeah, thank
Mhm.
God they did leave.
I
Yeah.
can imagine it's very difficult right now for lawyers to negotiate the passing of Afghanis and Americans. They're still Americans.
That they're still there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Uh, one
Absolutely.
thing, one thing that surprised me, I think I haven't heard from any American who evacuated from Afghanistan. They said they evacuated about 6,000 of them, and I haven't heard the story of anybody like in the news. I wonder
Mm.
why. It'll be interesting to hear what they've been through, but they said 6,000 and nobody had the interest to talk to them. I don't know. Have you heard from anybody? Have you? No.
Not really. Not really. I'm only in touch with my family, just making sure they're okay. But Pakistan is right now being the devil. They're not accepting any refugees. And if they find that you're a refugee and they say you don't have proper paperwork, they'll deport you.
Send it back. Send you back. Wow. Because I know in the immediate aftermath of the falling of Kabul, many people took the road through the desert to get there. There were tens of thousands of people. What happened to those people? Pakistan accepted them.
So there's a border on, yeah, there's a border by Nangarhar, it's one of the provinces. And then there's another border in Kandahar, which is also another province in Afghanistan. My cousin went from Kandahar. So they opened the border for maybe like a day or two. And so people who are walking to Kandahar, to Nangarhar, trying to pass the border, they had closed the doors. I actually saw an interview of the one of the girls who was there. She was just showing live, and people were like so sick and so like tired from the walk. They were sitting in like moms were carrying their baby. It was such a heartbreaking scene, and I'm just hoping that those people have passed through the border. I mean, eventually they'll look at your paperwork and they'll let you go, but a lot of times they say no, so you have to go back.
Wow. What do you think it will happen with all these women and girls? Everybody's thinking of the women and girls who went to school during the US occupation, who had dreams to have a career. And I see them demonstrating on the streets, and I cannot not think that they have a target on their backs.
So from what I understand, Taliban said they will let women or girls continue to go to school, but there's other news stating that they've decided that they're going to put like walls or curtains in the rooms. I mean, I just think that's it on its own is so distracting to have a wall in your classroom and boys are staying on one side. It's going to be a big transition. I think the women are not going to get the equal rights. There's no such thing as gender equality. That's going to go away completely. Whatever we had established in the last 10 years or 20 years, it's going to be all a wash. It's going to be very devastating for a lot of girls to hear from their own parents to say, you now have to stay home because what if a Talib comes and tries to kidnap you? What? Because they're very under name of Islam, they do many, many wrong things. They marry 4 times. You know, in Islam, you only marry if you're, you know, there's a whole protocol, but they do it out of pleasure. And so they think it's their right and it's okay for them to just have whatever woman or girl that they like on the street. So they will just kidnap and just make them their brides. So if I was a mom living there, I would keep my daughter home because I would be so scared of her going to school, walking on the streets alone. So either I'll be like her bodyguard, bringing her, taking her back, or I'll be like, just your life is done, just stay home. And I remember a lot of parents made that decision in front of my eyes. Like I had friends who went until high school, and then high school, how you're 18, 19, right? That's when you know you're ready to get married, right? So
Yes.
I've heard a lot of my friends' parents telling them they can't continue anymore. You can't go to college because what if something happens? What if somebody just can, and then they just wait for the right proposal for the girl, and the girl gets married and starts building home. So
My
it's going to
God,
be a very
yes.
sad situation for women. It's going to be a very sad situation.
Wow, so heartbreaking. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And but this was under Taliban or US occupation too, this happened? Because you said it happened under your eyes when you were
Exactly.
both.
Exactly. So even both. So there
Both.
were many, like I remember my brother who actually decided that he would take less classes just so he could have the flexibility to be with me more. And I was one of the lucky ones. My parents are all about education. They helped me get to where I am today, honestly. Like I would be one of those women. But so my brother was basically dropping me off, picking me up, making sure like because a lot of people who lived through war, imagine the trauma you have gone through. Imagine uh, the lack of, you know, the way you feel about other women, or you haven't seen women going out to school and wearing modest or okay clothing and not wearing burqas. You know, there were people who lived through war and they didn't know how to react with women, you know,
Yes.
so a lot of parents were really scared to send their daughters to school.
Yes.
So now, imagine now it's 10 times worse because it's Taliban and nobody trusts them. Nobody trusts this group.
Yeah.
We don't know what their intentions are, what they're going to do with the woman. What we have heard many cases right now that they have been kidnapping and just marrying women, and it's a big mess. So people are scared. People are scared.
I can imagine. Yes. But is this? I've seen even the Department of Defense. I think they put out a question saying that they don't know how to deal with um, child brides coming into the US with the refugees. Uh, who, how much part of the culture is to marry underage girls, or is just a fringe, I don't know, fringe thing that's happening? And who are these people?
Taliban.
So they came. So Taliban's came as refugees right now in the United States because the Department of Defense said this is happening. They have child brides, so they don't know how to deal with that. These are
Oh,
Taliban's.
I did not know that. But like I said, a lot of people who were raised in the war and with that trauma. Imagine a kid who was 5 years old. Um, a kid who's 5 year old in 1990. He's ready to get married in 2005. So like, so they didn't go to
Mm,
school. They were in the war. So the trauma, the way they were raised, and a lot of the times they don't know how to behave around women. They don't know how to act in a society that is more civil. So I feel like that generation was kind of dying down, and we were getting to another level because it's been 20 years. So we
yes.
were hoping that, the mindsets would change, that people would start acting normally around women, people would start to adopt to more democratic way of living, and then boom, this happened. So yes, I agree with child brides. In the outskirts, in some of the provinces, it's a very common thing.
Wow.
It's a very common thing. Yes.
Do you wish there was more screening and whom to bring to the US and whom not to bring? Do you think these people should have? I mean, I understand you should save them from a worse situation, but there are other people, I don't know, more deserving, do you think? Or
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly, here are what my thoughts, because I'm also working with resettlement agencies and organizations and other Afghani communities to make sure that we have a platform for these people who are coming out of the base. So I'm very closely involved with them. So what I see is that once they fall in the system, I feel like hopefully hoping that the system would help them adjust and learn some of the ways of living. I mean, marrying an 18-year-old or 17-year-old is very, it's illegal here. And so hopefully those women who came here underage, they will find their way. They will be able to have a voice. So I'm okay with them coming here. And so this system wouldn't allow those men to go and marry an 18-year-old in America or commit any kind of crimes that would, they're going to be deported. They're going to be deported. But as far as those women who are coming, I'm very happy. I'm very happy that they're getting out of those kind of environment, and now they're going to be here in which they're going to get, emotional support. They're going to get housing help. They're going to get help. They're going to get their voices heard for the first time ever. So I'm happy for those women.
yes, as we all are.
Yeah.
And I think there will be a lot more refugees coming in, right? Because
Yes.
the, the US is evacuated, or not. A lot of refugees were evacuated in Germany, and they are just waiting to make their passage in the US, right?
Yeah, so we're expecting another 10,000 refugee families in Jersey.
In New Jersey.
It's a
So
lot.
tell us about that. So how the resettlement is working, how are you involved, or the community is involved, and how what people who are listening, for example, can help.
Yeah, so this is a very unlikely situation, as we all know, like evacuating tens of thousands of people. That's like 600 families from a country. Um, It has never happened in the history. So it's definitely a new thing for all these countries to kind of manage. That's why if you are an Afghan and you're listening to this, even if you, it doesn't matter if you have a degree, if you have a nonprofit, if you have work, if you don't work, you are a very valuable asset and a part of community right now, and it's your job to raise your voice. So if you are an Afghan listening to this, raise your voice, create a community, ask questions, get involved with some of the organizations. So the work that I am doing in particular right now, like I said, when the chaos happened, I jumped on and I try to like follow some of the accounts that are doing more of the humanitarian work. I went to the protests, I went to the UN. I'm trying to give as much of my time and energy and see where I can fit in and bring some value, because right now it's very easy. They're in the base, they're taken care of, they're getting their meals, they're getting their health checks, they're getting their screening done, they're getting their vaccine, the kids are playing, all the drives that we did in the community. So they're getting all the supplies that they need. Hopefully, I'm just praying. If they don't, we do another drive. I mean, our community is so generous. My garage filled up 4 times and we were delivering it to the Patterson location in where we are storing it, and then we deliver it to the base as the need happens. So right now it's a calm after the storm, but I think another storm is coming when these families leave the base. Think about it. We're talking 500 to 600 families, and they're going to need homes. They're going to need education. They're going to need help. They're going to need doctors. They're going to need psychologists. They're going to need supplies. So what we're doing along with Welcome Home, that's based in Jersey City, it's a nonprofit. They are helping with homes. So they're kind of putting in place a few homes that are ready to go. So based on where those families end up, say 10 families go to Jersey City, 10 families go to Elizabeth, 10 family goes to Monmouth County. So those organizations have to have those homes ready to go for them. And then our job as volunteers is to jump on and be like, okay, what do you need? I was thinking it would be a great idea to pair one family to another Afghan family in New Jersey. Believe it or not, when I went to the protest, my jaw dropped. I was like, is this how many Afghans live here? Why do I not know you? Like 42nd Street was full of
Wow.
from end to end, from 8th Avenue to 7th, full. They're all Afghans, and majority didn't make it. My husband didn't make it. So all these Afghans are here, eager, ready to jump and help and volunteer. So I was thinking of creating like a buddy system. So, okay, family number A, pairing it with family number 1 and help them, whatever they need. Call them, show them how to use Google, show them how to use computer, show them how to use Uber, small things like that.
Yeah,
So we're
even teach them English, because I imagine many of them don't
don't
speak
know.
any English. Yeah.
Yeah. So having those classes in place and be like, hey, this is the class you're going to take at 1 o'clock online. You got to be in front of your computer. So we're kind of trying to create a system. So once they leave, we know exactly what's going to happen. You know what I mean? So right now we have like a little group of people who are working on that.
So this nonprofit Welcome Home has housing.
Yes.
They have houses that they can provide to refugees.
No, so the way it works, it's called the Resettlement Agency, or they're not really an agency. They're agencies that are working right now tirelessly, like IRC, CWS. Those are like bigger agencies. This is just a small nonprofit. What they do is that they take refugees from any country. Well, before it was any country, now it's Afghanistan. They find homes in the neighborhood. They talk to the landlord. They make sure they sign the lease for them. They make sure they're making sure that the people are okay, like they're not gonna ruin the house. And so the landlord gives the house to Welcome Home, and then they bring the refugees. And for about 4 to 6 months, I can't remember, Welcome Home pays their rent. So that's kind of how it works. So Welcome Home needs to get grants from government or other institutions who are providing help and money for this cause. So their hands are full right now. They have about 6 homes ready to go and working. We're going to help them work on more homes to just have them ready. Just talk to the landlord and come up with an agreement. And so when the families show up, we know who goes where. So nobody's left without a home. I guess that's the first thing that they need.
A lot of people were saying that this whole thing could have been prevented if the US would have cut the ties with Pakistan, the Taliban ties with Pakistan. What do you think about that?
So, like I said, it's a very deep topic. Afghans do believe that Taliban was created and made in Pakistan and outskirts of Afghanistan, and they were provided with a lot of help and support through Pakistan. And so it could have been done in a more peaceful way. Yes, 100%. If the United States government tried to make this a more of a peaceful evacuation process, this all would not have ended up the way it ended up. And so Afghans are pissed off. They're very mad. They're very hurt. They're hurt because we Americans, I live here. I'm a US citizen. They failed us in so many ways. They hurt us in so many ways.
They betrayed.
They betrayed is the word. Yes, you took care of us for 20 years, but that's because of lack of right kind of people in the government, which could have also been prevented by the government of the United States. So it's like mess after mess after mess. And then you evacuating your own troops the way you did and allowing Taliban to take over and take all of that stuff that you left behind. $2 trillion worth of goodies for them to use. They're the most powerful terrorist group in this, basically in our planet. So they can do anything they want. They have the power. They can. So it's sad. It could have been prevented. All of this could have been prevented if they had a different strategy on evacuation.
Well, I imagine you have mixed feelings. You are an American helping Afghanis now, and this country is showing a lot of generosity towards Afghanis right now. Everybody's feeling for the Afghanis, especially women and children. So you see their generosity on one hand, and you see the
betrayal.
Betrayal on the other hand. So it's a disconnect at a certain point between the government decision, the people who make the decisions, and the people, that really live in this country.
And same thing in Afghanistan. I'm not fighting for the government. I could care less if Taliban takes over the whole continent. I care about the poor people who lived through war. They were just getting their life together. They were just building, like I said, they were building malls. They were getting parks. They were getting stadiums. We finally had our Afghanistan girls team. They participated in the Olympics for the first time in the history.
Wow.
We had the robotics team of women who are building. They're intelligent girls. They're talented. They are beautiful. They deserve, I'm getting all emotional. They deserve the best life. The betrayal to the people of Afghanistan is what hurts me the most. And that's what I'm standing up for. And I'll continue to fight as much as I can for the rights of women. Whatever happened that's why I don't like to get into the political side, because it's pointless discussion. Everybody talks about the same thing. We don't know what the reality is, but our heart bleeds for the people who are still going to be living under that kind of government.
Yes. And do you find that the media kind of already moved on, and in another 2 weeks it will barely.
It's gonna die down.
Mentioned. Yeah.
It's gonna die down.
It will be the next thing. This also saddens me. I feel very strongly about this story because of where I'm coming from. I also come from a country that was, 50 years under communism. You don't know what that does to people.
Yeah.
And also, so communism fell 30 years ago, but the mentalities have evolved, but not as much, not as much as you would like. It's a very emotional story, and people move on from all this, and they don't even think of the trauma you you live through, and the consequences of all of that. And there are other things that European Union now is imposing in the country, and you feel the people over there are just pawns for all these powers. And probably that's why the Afghani story touched me so much. And now seeing people moving along, 2 weeks later, and in another 2 weeks it will be barely mentioned.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And another story, which uh, it's maybe a paradox, but this is coming from a good place, a good, Americans have a big heart, and they were talking about the dogs. They were talking about the dogs so much, and you and I, we all both have pets. I saw your postings, and my dog is part of my family, no question about it. And what I've done for her, it's sleepless nights and all that. At the same time, uh, it's a little bit, I don't know what to say. It's an important story. I found it also a little bit childish. I was thinking of uh, what happened in, I don't know if you're familiar with Yanomi Parks. She's a refugee from North Korea. And she was saying when she first got here, she was surprised of how PETA was, and people, Americans in general, they suffer so much for the animals, the pets, but uh, they don't think of, it's a Auschwitz that's happening in North America, in North Korea right now.
Oh my God.
So of course I care. That story about the dogs touched me, but at the same time, it's so American to care about animals and forget in a couple of weeks about the people. So
Exactly. Exactly. And the sad part is that we're one of the superpowers. Who runs the world? United States, United Nations. Nobody can do anything for the Afghan woman, really. Like, I thought we were living in the time of technology and the time of democracy and equal rights and gender equality. And so here we are. I saw a video this morning of women dressing. They looked crazy, like covered with gloves inside the parliament. Like, is that a joke? Come on. Islam doesn't say that. I'm a Muslim. I'm a believer in God, and I can tell you right now, Islam doesn't tell you to look like a zombie. You look so straight that people will start staring at you because you look so strange that you're covered so much. So all of that's doing is giving a bad reputation to Muslims. That's not Islam.
I think people know by now that there are Muslims and Muslims. I'm also surprised about, Me Too movement and women movement that went on, in the streets protesting in 2017 about women's rights, but you don't see any of that all over the world. It was not only in the US, it was Australia, it was in Europe, it was everywhere. And
didn't they shake the world? Like, everybody woke up and they shared their story.
And nothing now. And my fear is this story, as I said, in 2 more weeks and nobody's going to talk about
It's
it.
going to be history. Yeah, totally agree with you.
Yeah. And all these dreams and I mean, again, I lived in communism. Women were not valued. Nothing like, you know, what happened in under Taliban was terrible. What I've been through, I cannot imagine, you know, that type of situation. Kausar, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your story. If you want to add anything right now, please do so.
Thank you so much for having me, Daniela. It's been a pleasure, and I'm hoping that people will continue to support the Afghans. They are in need for your help and support. Just following the news, just messaging your Afghan friend, asking how she's doing, because Afghans are very hurt right now. And we're also running a campaign in which we are trying to reach congressmen with requesting things that the Afghans need right now, such as waiving the visa fees, you know, having more people enter the country. So the letter keeps on changing. But if you can do me a favor right now, take out your phone and text the word crisis to 58826. And if you can write that in the caption, that would be great. Just to reach as many people as we can to raise their voices. You can simply do that with your cell phone. Thank God for technology.
Yes, I will. Please send me all that,
Yeah.
and I'll post it with the video so people
Thank
know
you.
exactly. And if there is a place where they can donate or anything, please let me know. I'll also post the link.
Absolutely. I'm going to have a fundraiser soon, and I'll be happy to invite you, your family, and, you know, the
Everybody
community.
who's listening. Yes.
Everybody
Thank
who's
you so
listening.
much. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Khasa. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.